You are listening to the Proverbs for Living a Fulfilling Life podcast. Hi, this is your host, Dr. Rick Upchurch. These Proverbs come from a lifetime of experience. My goal in sharing them with you is to help you avoid some of life's pitfalls and hopefully give you some tools to live a more fulfilling life. I hope you will ponder the proverb in this episode and take away something that you can use.
Episode 12. Being content. Paul, the apostle, states, I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation. From his book to the Philippians, chapter 4, verses 11 and 12. I sense the possibility of a self-help book, possibly because while Paul may know how to be content whatever the circumstances, he is definitely in the minority. For most of us, the whole concept of being content is as elusive and slippery as trying to hold on to a greased pig. Just when you think you've got a good grip on the little porker, a little wiggle and off he shoots, with you chasing. It doesn't help that we are living in the most marketed time in recorded history, with advertisements of every conceivable type bombarding us constantly with things that we must have if we ever hope to be content. So, is being content simply a fantasy that might have been possible in Paul's day, but has slowly become nothing more than an unachievable dream? The answer is yes and no. Yes, if your definition of content is wrapped up in possessing things and meeting societal paradigms of what content should look like. We see this in the paradoxical focus on beauty as defined by our culture, and the constant rhetoric that decries that standard, all while we continue to embrace it wholeheartedly in how we judge others and how the purchases we make. It seems we have become capable of being duplicitous with ourselves without recognizing the hypocrisy. This really is one of the worst attributes of the human character. There is no end to the examples of this behavior all around us. From how we say we abhor violence, yet we validate those who are violent, to those who decry poverty, yet continue to live lavish lifestyles. And there are so many other examples. In this context, being content really is nothing more than a fantasy. But there is another definition, or rather perspective, where it is possible to achieve Paul's state of contentment. The secret to being content to which Paul is referring is a complete faith in Jesus Christ. Absolute trust that God is at work for the best. Not much of a secret, but definitely a significant commitment. We each exist in a reality that probably is not how we imagined or hoped it would be. No doubt there are aspects of your life that could even be described as tragic. You're not alone in that fact. Our unpleasant realities are only unpleasant because we refuse to accept them as pieces in a greater puzzle. Like the old analogy of not being able to see the forest for the trees, our immediate circumstances can prevent us from seeing the bigger picture. We are prevented from accepting and moving forward by denial. And no, that's not just a river in Egypt. We say, I don't want to believe this is happening, so I'll pretend it isn't happening and hope it goes away. Or alternately, we engage in active avoidance, saying, I don't like what's happening and I don't want to be a part of it. But neither denial nor avoidance can change our reality. However, faith in God can change our reality and even give it meaning as it did for Paul. It is then that we can begin to get a glimpse of the bigger picture, that God is in control, that God cares about you personally, and even when you are dealing with the worst of circumstances, He has not forsaken you. I know this because it has been true for me. Earlier in my life, I had resigned from my job for what I felt were moral reasons. I felt I was being asked to do something that was immoral, so I resigned. With a wife and 3 children and literally no savings, this was a problem. Trusting God to sustain us during this time was one of the biggest challenges we faced. I immediately got a job at a fast food restaurant, but not nearly enough to make the ends meet. I can remember coming home from work one day to find my wife crying and praising God at the same time. When she could talk, she told me that the pastor of our church had stopped by and left some groceries and a check, just enough to cover the month's rent. That wasn't the only time that we saw God provide during this valley, and he eventually led us to the other side and back into the kind of employment for which I was trained. But it also wasn't the only time before or after that we had had the opportunity to practice being content in the midst of the storm. I have always found this to be true. God is able to sustain those who will put their trust in him. When that happens, you can begin to find the place that Paul is talking about, the place of being content in any and every circumstance.
Thanks for listening. Please subscribe to this podcast and leave a comment. I love reading fan comments. In every case, the information in these Proverbs is merely the tip of the iceberg of information related to that specific topic. If you find that one or more of these particularly resonate with you, do a little research in the area, and I'm sure you will find more information that will help you. Don't hesitate to leave me a message. I'll be glad to help or point you in the right direction. May God bless you and strengthen you on your journey.